have we are recording this, as you all can see. We want to make sure that this is available for everybody to see. It will be on YouTube. So if you aren't able to stay through the whole meeting, just know that it will be on YouTube. All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. We want to give folks ample time to get settled in, um, get into the meeting. We still got a few folks in the waiting room trying to get in. So we'll get started in about 1 minute. Again, thank y'all for coming in. If you want, just tell us where you're from in the chat. Introduce yourself in the chat. That's always fun to figure out who's near us. I am um from LA. I'm gonna introduce myself shortly, but that is why it's bright where I am. Thanks y'all for being here. All right. I think we can go ahead and get started. I'm gonna stop managing the waiting room so that I can facilitate and host. I am Rochelle or Dr. Brooks. I will be your host this evening along with Tylea. Um, and I just want to thank y'all for being here. Um, we are going to cover, you can go back to the agenda. We're going to cover some really important things tonight. We'll have an icebreaker from Maddie, who is our specialty in comms. You probably have seen her face. When she comes up here, you'll recognize her. And then we're gonna jump into the highlight of the evening, hearing our people that are most impacted and folks that have been organizing around these issues. We're gonna listen to them, uh, their expertise and their experiences. I want to thank the first Palestinian American to serve in Congress, who's always on the side of tenants and social justice, and who's been a beacon of courage in dark times. We have Rashida Tlaib with us this evening. We also have our EQR9 who we're going to be introducing. You'll know what the EQR9 is in a couple of hours, and you'll recognize their faces and their stories. Thank y'all for being here. Hannah, one of our co-founders, is going to talk about our debt strikes, and connect the history of why a debt collective is taking on this fight. And then we have an amazing group, the Tenants Union Federation, who's going to talk about some of their multi-state strikes against Capital Realty Group and share a little bit about their work on this call. And then we'll hear from our EQR DTU representative, to talk a little bit about what the wins that we've had in this campaign so far. But as I mentioned, I am Rochelle. I'm Dr. Brooks. I've been organizing with the Debt Collective for about 5 years. Some of y'all may have known me from the student loan debt space. I've got $250,000 in student loan debt. And I was just really loud about not paying my student loans. And that's how I connected with the Debt Collective. So I'm a lifelong student debt striker. But the reason that we're here today is we're going to be talking about our groundbreaking initiative, that's going to address a crisis that's impacting all of us. I am sure every single person on this call can relate to the housing crisis. We're going to dive into the heart of the matter and talk about why rent is so damn high. We're also going to talk about tangible steps that tenants and debtors can take, so that we can reclaim our power and that we can fight for the housing justice and the housing that we deserve in this country. This isn't just about understanding the problem, right? I think all of us being impacted by it, we have a solid understanding of how we're impacted. But we also want to empower one another with knowledge. We want to empower one another with tools. We're launching a historical tool tonight, that I hope you all use and share. But we're going to demand change. We're going to build a more equitable future. This rent debt pandemic has been growing, right? We've seen what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tenants lost jobs, tenants lost income, and as a result have been left with insurmountable amounts of debt. And this administration is not helpful, right? It further criminalizes homelessness. Corporate landlords are continuing to profit by inflating rents. They're displacing tenants and directly fueling the and furthering the housing crisis. So we're here today. We're going to be building collective power for housing justice. And I thank y'all for being in attendance here. And I thank y'all for joining the fight. I'm really excited about what this group can do. And I'm going to pass it to Maddie, who's going to have us engage in an icebreaker. Thanks, y'all, for being here.
Thank you, Dr. B. I just want to say how much I love and appreciate you for all of the amazing work you've been doing and all the amazing work that everybody on this call has been doing. Um, the tenants, the organizers, this is such an exciting day. And so I'm really excited to do an icebreaker. So how it's going to work is the icebreaker will be up on the screen, but you can also answer in the chat. And maybe if we have time, couple people can come off mute. But this icebreaker is inspired by a book. It's called Abolish Rent. Hopefully, you can see it. This book taught me a lot. I live in Oakland, California. I'm the creative media strategist with the Debt Collective. And one of the parts of the book, a quote really stuck out to me. And it says, organizing is the alchemy and the science that turns individual vulnerability into collective power. So I'm all about quotes and words. And I thought about the word alchemy and the word science. A lot of the time when people say alchemy, they think magic. It's kind of like that intuitive thing that you can't really put a finger on, but it just works. And then science, usually that's thought of as more logical, or you have a hypothesis and you test it out. But both of these things are important for turning that individual vulnerability into collective power. And that's what we're going to be working on today. And so the first thing that I want to ask you all is what's one gift or talent that you bring to the alchemy or the science of organizing? And it's good to think of it as like a small skill. Every little bit counts. So it could be that you have an attention to detail. It's super on point. It could be that you know how to make people laugh. I know a lot of people on this call know how to make people laugh. I've experienced it firsthand. And it is so needed and necessary in these days and times. Nobody wants to come to the meeting if it's just all doom and gloom. They want to laugh sometimes too, right? So if you could share one gift or talent you bring to the alchemy of organizing, you can share in the chat. You could say, hey, my name is blank. I bring blank. Dr. B already says I get stuff done. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Just getting those tasks completed. And then how will you use those unique gifts to be useful as we organize against corporate landlords? Okay, so now you have this gift. Obviously, with Dr. B's example, we need to get stuff done. I want to share for myself one gift that I never thought it was a gift when I was growing up, but I am very courageous, almost delusionally courageous. Like I'll be like, wait, hold me back, hold me back. No, I'm the type of person who I'm usually inspiring other people when they feel afraid, and being afraid is totally natural and normal. I don't think there's any bad emotions, but I know that I can bring that to this movement because it is so scary to think about what we're up against. And these corporations can seem so huge and massive, and they have all this money. But sometimes we forget that we have people power. And there might be one of us, right, struggling, and we forget because we close up, we get afraid, and we don't talk to anyone else. We don't realize that we actually have power when we're courageous enough to even say hi to our neighbors, to even, have a potluck together, to talk about our problems together. It's just one step after another. And so that's what I know that I can bring to the movement. And I see a couple people are already popping off in the chat. Organizers can let me know if maybe a couple people could share briefly the gifts that they bring to the alchemy of organizing. If a couple people want to come off mute, anybody? Love to hear from you. Shy? Are people shy? I can read also in the chat. Um we got people saying there's a lot of people that are responding, But I need, okay, we got Braxton saying I can make a serious R&B country mix playlist if anyone needs it. That is super important, especially because lately I've been doing line dancing. I love learning the steps to line dance. Hannah says logistics, so important to organizing. Yes. Um, we have, I might pronounce her name wrong, but Yara, I think it is. I'm an accountant and I have over 5 years of experience. Not sure how I can help. Um, Accountants, please, thank you. Yes, we need accountants for sure. For sure. We need people that are very organized and meticulous for sure. Okay, we have a couple people answering. Does anybody else want to come off mute and say what they bring, what special gifts that they bring? Drew Pierce says, I'm an educator. I'm skilled at raising consciousness among young people who don't think of themselves as particularly political. Oh my God, I resonate with that so much. People will be like, I'm not that political. There's just lead in my water, and I'm scared to drop off my kid from school because I'm scared of all this gun violence. And be like, yes, you are political. Those are two political issues, right? You want to raise people's awareness and consciousness that we're all political, right? Cool. So this is something that you can think about as we continue with the rest of today's session. But thank you all for taking part. And remember that alone our debts are a burden, but together they make us powerful. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Maddie. I feel like you always inspire people. So thank you so much for bringing your gift into this work. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our guest for this evening. Um, Representative Rashida Tlaib has championed Keeping Renters Safe Act. She supports the National Tenants Bill of Rights. She's always been a strong advocate for canceling rent and mortgage debt that's been accrued during the pandemic. She's always pushed for federal oversight of corporate landlords like Invitation Homes. I had them as a landlord. I know what that means. Thank you for that. And has been an advocate for increased federal funding for public housing, for infrastructure upgrades, and community land trust. I appreciate your work dearly. It's an honor to have you with us tonight. I introduce to you all Congressperson Representative Rashida Tlaib.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. Thank you all so much. I so love our organizing movement and the fact that we always center just our humanity, even the reaction to the question. I know sometimes, just showing the vulnerability, why you care so much, and being vulnerable sometimes is incredibly scary, but it does inspire people to act, especially because I see a lot of so many. Residents of mine are more acting when they feel like they're, advocating on behalf of their neighbor or behalf of others. And because it's so incredibly uncomfortable sometimes trying to fight for yourself, and that you're deserving of better. But it's something, again, I think is a struggle for so many residents across the country. But I'm truly excited to be here. I'm always wanting to stand with all of you and showing people what's possible when we join together and fight for what is right. As you all know, I'm from Detroit. I grew up in really diverse part of the most beautiful blackest city in the country where we had 20 different ethnicities, where community mothers taught me over and over again that transformative change comes from the streets, that pushes institutions like Congress, the White House, legislative branches, city council, and so much more. But as you all know, I know many of you already know on this call that EQR is awful. I mean, I was looking at the fact that they're one of the biggest landlords, of course, in the US, but for some of you might not know, they own a little over 84,000 apartment units across the country, and they're worth about 36 billion. And their CEO made about close to $11.5 million last year. One of the most interesting things, and it's incredibly unfortunate, um, but we know this is happening. And again, the county I live in had one of the worst housing crises during the recession, and we lost. Michigan, I think, was the only state that lost the most Black home ownership than any other state in the country. But you know, I the the fact that they call them equity residential is crazy, but these landlords use junk fees and algorithmic, whatever price fixing. Many of you may not be aware, but they're using a lot of this technology to raise rent in violation of rent control and antitrust protections. And they're doing it again unapologetically, and they're not in many ways even hiding it. So, as you all know, as you organize this incredible movement to bringing tenants to show them that they don't have to be in survivor mode, that you should be able to thrive in our country. Um, you all need to understand that corporate greed is very real when it comes to housing. They use shady practices, like I told you. They, um, we've seen a lot of billionaires use the power in Washington to oppose the programs and policies that support working families because many of them, again, like the status quo. They like the lack of enforcement. They like that many people don't know their rights as tenants. And again, this is all what is happening when we have a system that puts profits over so many lives, and that favors corporate power and concentrated wealth over democracy. And so again, I hate that it's not just utilities, it's not just our healthcare system, it's not just, the grocery store. They are now treating our homes, our homes as some sort of kind of investment. A house is an investment, not a home for us, a survival for many of us. This system has produced, the housing crisis we have. And so many want to blame this or that, but I know this, both Democrats and Republicans have not moved an ounce in urgency to try to address the housing crisis. More than 22 million households spend over 30% of their income on rent and the utilities. And when you factor in, as I told you all, the healthcare and the child care costs and the groceries, it just gets worse and worse for our families. Roughly 2 out of every 3 working age renters struggle to pay for their basic necessities. And we know that this doesn't have to be this way. That's why we're on this call. That's why we're pushing back. We can make housing a human right. No one ever thought we'd be able to organize unions in our country, that we would even have the word civil rights within law. It's not perfect, but it was all created from movement from the outside in. And so, with all the basic goods and services we need to survive, healthcare and education, all of that can be a right, and we can push back. We can cancel rent debt. Everyone continues to say that's impossible. It is not. When I watch them bail out over and over again corporations, when they give the billions of dollars in tax giveaways to corporations that don't even need it, when they can show up with the money like this for bombs and wars, they can sure as hell show up for people that need homes. We can build a housing cooperatives. We can create community land trusts, public housing that operate in a democratic, beautiful way, controlled by the people who actually live there. We have the resources, y'all. I've got a front row seat to it. That's not the issue. Our country is unimaginably wealthy. The problem is power. That's why I'm so excited by what all of you are doing, the Equity Residential Tenants and Debtors United and the EQR9 are doing. You're showing that when we join together, everyday people have power and they can push back against corporate greed and push back against those that continue to dehumanize us because they want to put money and profits before our lives. So you're showing that we don't have to wait too, which I love. I tell people I like moving with urgency. Um, these are years that we can't get our families back. These are children living again, hearing their families and folks struggling again in survivor mode that is creating a form of trauma for so many. And so all of you again are moving in a way that you understand organizing from the outside and pushing in is the way that we can again achieve the goals that we have. Um, I do want to say when one group stands up against injustice, it does send a strong message, a message again that we aren't powerless. Maddie talked about that. And it sends us a warning. I mean, the thing that they're most scared of is when we're all talking to each other and when we are coming together and showing people these are the rights that you have. This is how we can enforce it. This is where we can get legal help. This is how we can show up at council zoning, whatever it takes to continue to again push back against a narrative that everything is fine. So, thank you. Thank you for taking on the greedy corporate landlords. To all those who put, again, um, the lives of so many of my families and residents, to the wayside while they continue to profit, offer their misery and offer their struggle. Thank you for standing up. When folks asked me to come on, I instantly was incredibly proud to say, oh, can't believe this is happening. I'm glad that it is. And I hope you all know that I have your back. And if you ever need any Detroit families, community folks, they are ready to do this. The rent is too damn high movement in Detroit is growing, and they're not waiting for Congress to act. They're going to our state capitol and demanding it. And so, again, at all levels of government, we are speaking very loudly, very clearly. We don't have to beg. We can just show them that we're going to organize them, show that people do have the power when they come together. And we can again fight against those that continue to profit off of our pain. Thank you again. You all are showing an up and away for so many folks that might not be able to. And just know again that um, a home is so much more than just a structure. It is stability, it is safety, it is so much more than that. And all they can do is look at the money um, and the profit they can make off of it. Well, we know it is really an incredibly important part for our families to be able to thrive. So again, thank you all so much. And again, it's such an honor to be in space with all of you.
What's up, everyone? I
Thank
just
you.
want to thank Rashida for one more time. Thank you so much for being here, for speaking out with us. We're so in awe of you and your story, and we appreciate you so much for being here. Again, my name is Kylie Payne. I'm a former tenant of Equity Residentials. We're here because we all have faced mind-blowing stories, all from the same corporate landlord, Equity Residential. So many of us have dealt with the repercussions from being tenants of equity. We face things like equity issues and legal business practices and retaliation. Thankfully, a lot of us have had huge success with organizing and fighting back against these violations, which you will hear about in a few minutes. I'm thankful that I've connected with folks who don't like me, that individual power is not compared to the power of a collective. This collective is choosing to exercise that power that we have. We're going to take you on a journey of hardship and achievements, starting with my personal stories, and then the rest of the infamous EPR dying. So, next slide. Oh, it's this slide. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Sorry. Everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Doing great.
Okay, good. My sister and I were excited to embark on a new adventure in a new neighborhood to continue creating in our hometown of Los Angeles. As natives, it meant a lot to us to live our lives here. We chose the Hesby in North Hollywood, and as a previous tenant of equity, we hoped it would be a similar smooth situation as we failed. Sound of that? Taxes, okay. Um, Can you guys still hear me?
That's much better. Yeah.
That's much better?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So where was I? Oh, the Hesby. We chose the Hesby in North Hollywood. And as previous tenants of equity, we hoped it would be a similar smooth situation as before. The Hesby was everything we wanted and needed at the time. We were stoked to be able to afford the security deposit since everywhere else had been a struggle to meet our needs. It was advertised more as a luxury building, which kept us intrigued, of course. Yet after we moved in, we realized that it was a lot less luxurious than originally advertised. After some time, we learned that although these types of apartments can be considered a type of luxury, there's a plethora of issues that come with staying in these places. We learned that since they're owned by a real estate development trust rather than an individual, that landlords aren't keeping up with their properties as well as they should. The buildings had roaches and was unsettlingly safe. But there are multiple break-ins and occasions where we feared for our safety. Mailboxes were broken into, tenants were blamed for letting people in unsupervised. There were endless garage car break-ins where management did not show any signs of urgency that these problems should be solved. For a luxury building, you think there would be plenty of security and a commitment to keeping the community safe, right? On top of all of that, the facilities were out of order and breaking down every moment we turned around. These habitability issues were not taken into account while tenants were just continuing to pay a lot more than the average rent amount in the area. Real estate investment trusts prioritize profits over the people, buying up most of the properties within the city and in the country without taking care of their residents and addressing the issues that we have. They're more concerned with maintaining the relationship with their stakeholders, and their CEO is making billions of dollars a year, abusing, violating, and discriminating against the community they claim to care for equitably. Locally, Los Angeles has had some of the most Los Angeles has had some of the most insecure economies since the pandemic, and everyone is struggling to make a living. You have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to have a stable income in the city, and everyone is doing it and forced to be okay with it. Even when there are local disasters like the pandemic, the writers and actors strike, and the Easter Canyon Palisades fires, our community begs our city officials to hold this responsible. Corporate landlords are allowed to rip homes from the people, and the city allows it. The landlords refuse to participate in city or government assistance because they'd rather villainize the tenants and evict them at disproportionate rates just to increase the rent and scam some other likely tenant moving into their expensive, lackluster property. As my sister and I are personally affected, the stories we've heard from other tenants who were suffering the same or a similar fate were profound. In a city where 50 to 60% of people work in the entertainment industry, a form of strike is going to affect the majority. Unfortunately, pleading our case to the managers and the lawyers there were getting approved for rental assistance did not work. And after an unplanned loss of income and missing 1 month's worth of rent, the manager of Equity Residential's Mackenzie put an eviction notice on the door and filed an unlawful detainer against us. These landlords claim to, 1, know the law, and 2, be equitable in their attempts to follow the law, which is furthest from the truth. They violate the law in multiple ways and knowingly take advantage of ill-advised tenants so they can continue their pursuits of even bigger profits than they already have. One would think that flexibility and grace, maybe a little empathy, would go a long way in situations like these with landlords who can basically afford to pay everybody's rent for the entirety of the year. But when you're dealing with a landlord that is a corporate business, you lose out on any empathy or love that's required to be shared in our sacred community like Los Angeles. Private investments in our towns drive up displacements within our neighborhoods. Natives and folks who have generational wealth are severely impacted and blocked or delayed from ever creating a legacy in the hometown they themselves grew up in. And who is targeted by these investments? Disparaged, impoverished communities and individuals, sensitive groups such as Black Americans, queers, veterans, women, and young adults trying to find stability in a system that harms them. The fact that there are little regulations for landlords and little protections for tenants shows you where the loyalty lies. The system does not, in fact, help or serve tenants. It allows harm to happen to them without consequence from the perpetrators. Our city, perhaps inadvertently, perpetuates this injustice without regard to how it'll impact LA residents for the rest of their lives. Equity Residential has been proven to behave unlawfully, unfairly, and fraudulently, and that is not okay with us. The pain of being forced out of our secure home, living in our car for months, and facing the unrelenting burden of debt, humiliation, credit damage, and a lifetime of trauma because of one missed rent payment is something I cannot explain in simple words. And we were considered one of the lucky ones. Now that we've committed to getting educated with the law and with our rights with nonprofits like Eviction Defense Network and building community with tenants and organizers from the Debt Collective, we're so much more empowered than we were before. We're still grieving our losses, but we do our best to share our stories so that other members of the community know they're not alone, and fighting back is hard, but it's possible and it's worth it. It feels so much better to know you're not crazy and you're not alone. We don't have to suffer alone. The future doesn't look like deceptive practices, inflated prices with low quality habitability. It doesn't look like discrimination and retaliation against everyday hardworking tenants. It looks like a living wage, fair housing, and restitution for all. We demand the city and the courts to take action and order these greedy landlords like Equity Residential to stop from continuing to be unequitable. Tools like the debt collective rent debt tool have helped tenants who have been evicted to come together, organize, and hold our landlords responsible for permanently damaging their tenants' lives. Our response is simple: strike, cancel the debt, and give us our lives back, please. And now I will introduce to you our first of the EQR9, including myself, who has had so much success with her fight, her personal story, and her tenants association. I'm like so happy to introduce you guys, Paige. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Talia, for that introduction. And thank you to all my fellow EQR9 and fellow former and current equity residential tenants on this call. My name is Paige, and I lived in Mosaic at Union Station, an equity residential property in downtown Los Angeles. And this is my story. It's hard to believe that a company making $2 billion in profit is sending me to collections over $195. But that's exactly what Equity Residential is doing. And to me, it's just one example of their predatory practices. I was a tenant in one of their buildings, Mosaic, for 5 years. When I moved in, they promised amenities like a pool, a good location, and a low security deposit. But it turned out to be a Potemkin village. Where was my $195 when I had a tarp over my window for 4 months because every time it rained, my ceiling leaked? Where was my $195 when their poorly maintained pipes burst and flooded my apartment with half an inch of water? Where was my $195 when mold started growing in every crevice and management claimed it was just condensation? Equity Residential doesn't care about that. They'd rather ruin my credit than admit that their profits come from running their buildings like slumlords and their business like a debt factory. That's why in 2023, my neighbors and I formed the Mosaic Tenants Association with support from the Los Angeles Tenants Union. We knew we deserved better. We knew we couldn't fight a $2 billion corporation alone. At first, our goals were modest. We just wanted working elevators, a pool that we paid for but hadn't been open for 18 months. But as we organized, our vision grew bigger. I believe that one day, corporate landlords like Equity Residential will no longer be able to control our lives by disciplining us by our own credit scores and threatening evictions. I believe we will no longer be ruled by algorithms that determine our rent and our ability to have a roof over our heads. I believe tenants organizing together into tenants unions like the Los Angeles Tenants Union are the future for housing. I believe that one day the people will control their own housing, not corporations. And I believe that no one should have their life upended over $195. Some people think that's idealistic. But before we got organized, I thought it was idealistic just to get equity to listen to us. Now, because of the organizing we've done with the help of the Debt Collective and the Los Angeles Tenants Union, we're in month 5 of a historic utility strike that pushed Equity Residential to undergo a huge pipe replacement project in my old building, Mosaic at Union Station. I'm no longer scared of what they can do to me, and that's why I'm debt striking, because there are more of us than there are of Equity Residential. Thank you. Woohoo!
Thank you so much, Paige. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And just congratulations again for all the hard work that you guys did. We're so inspired by you guys. Okay, next is Danny. Danny, are you
Hi.
ready still?
Yes,
Hey,
can you hear me?
Danny. Yes,
Hey.
we can hear you.
Okay, cool beans. All right. My name is Danny and I owe Equity Residential over $51,000 in back rent. I'm a disabled retired healthcare professional with over 27 years in the field. Corporate landlords such as Equity Residential are displacing already vulnerable populations throughout the nation. They use hidden fees, unfair evictions, and rent like as debt. Their practices are contributing to the homelessness crisis in California, not just in California, but everywhere. It's as if their business model is a systemic crisis that's going to spread from California to the rest of the country, believe me. Additionally, with the recent devastation from the fires in California, sorry, I'm a little bit emotional about that, being a person who has been permanently impacted and permanently displaced from it, I haven't been able to find anywhere to live because of equity. I'm unable to rent anywhere, and we've been living in our car. So to me, you know what home means? Home is community, home is family. It's a place to restore your life's energy. Being in debt and homeless makes me feel ashamed, enraged, isolated, even defeated. I'm sorry. Others in the country are dealing with all the same issues. Now I feel inspired by the Debt Collective, which has really made me feel part of a team because we have the ability to fight and win together. That's why I'm striking. And if you owe Equity Residential any money, you should join us and make sure to use the landlord reporting and rent debt tools as well. Sorry, that's it.
Thank you so much, Danny. We appreciate you. I'm over here crying, and I know
Sorry.
everybody else is too. It's okay. Thank you so much for your vulnerability. I know it's so hard to like revisit this, but thank you for sharing their stories. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
with us. Next up is my twin,
Well,
or oh, do we have somebody's mic on?
I got it. I
Okay, thank you so much. Next up is my twin and my partner in life that went through this with me, that can that is witness to all the things that we went through also. I'm happy to present my sister to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here to listen. So, my story is pretty much similar to my sister's, but I have a little perspective I'd like to share. Most people assume evictions happen because someone failed to pay rent, didn't follow rules, or just didn't try hard enough. And that is, well, that is until eviction happened to me. It's no secret that California is in the midst of a full-blown housing crisis, and it's hitting Black and Brown people especially hard. Generations of anti-Black housing policies, from redlining to discriminatory lending, have made it nearly impossible for Black families to build wealth or feel secure in their homes. What's worse is that most in LA are living paycheck to paycheck and cannot afford to be free to live. Like our ancestors and currently prisoners to this day, we are slaves to our work lives to keep our homes while being overworked and underpaid. Corporate landlords like Equity Residential are continuing that legacy in a new form by using shady business practices to trap tenants into unstable housing, rising rent debt, and forced eviction. One of the largest real estate investment trusts in the country, they lure tenants into luxury apartments with low deposits. And then once people are moved in, they raise the rent the following year and ignore any building repair needs, throw band-aids on any like small apartment fixes with minor to no communication. And that's exactly what happened to me and my sister at the Hensby in North Hollywood. It happened all so fast. We are LA natives and artists proudly. And we're excited to build a future in a new city. We were excited about living in North Hollywood, me especially, because I used to go there all the time when I was in Cal State Northridge with my friends. But during, but EQR didn't see us as neighbors. They saw us as they cut off communication after falling behind 1 month, ignored habitability issues like roaches, lighting, broken doors, repeated break-ins. 2 months later, we were hit with an eviction notice. And even during our court session, we were asked if we had rent relief, only for them to refuse it after we were approved by the city. They then took us through months and months of supposed negotiations, the rent debt growing as time passed, and we stayed in AQR before. And it was like we were never the tenant ever. We lost our home, we've lost our storage, and with all of our belongings, memories that we cannot get back. We ended up living in our car for months, and we were stuck with the debt, growing credit, and trauma that honestly we're still trying to process. And the worst part is that again, we were the lucky ones. This is their business model. When we decided to fight back after we were evicted, and then after we connected with the debt collective and other tenants who were going through worse stories than us. We don't want to just survive. We want to thrive in LA, not just for us, but our friends and our neighbors, our coworkers, collaborators, anybody who has worked with us or that we know who have it much worse. LA is for the people. I've always said that LA is for the people. And our generation is carrying a burden that older generations did not have to face. If you're not rich, you have to work 2 or 3 jobs. Not only are people still getting sick from COVID, but the writers and actors strike halted a lot of livelihoods, especially now that Hollywood is moving. And now that, not to mention that there are still people struggling after the Palisades and Altadena wildfires, they're just recovering. What has been done in LA so far is, again, band-aids, not long-term healing. And jobs are harder and harder to find because of ghost hirings, impossible work standards. 300,000 Black women have been pulled from the workforce in the last year or so. It's been noted multiple times that nowhere in the US can you afford a 2 bedroom with a 40-hour work week. And why is this so normalized in the supposed land of the brave? We are not asking for pity. We're demanding fairness in LA's toxic system for the future of artists, entrepreneurs, customer service workers, food service workers, teachers, homeless, and the like everywhere. I hope that y'all continue to join us in this fight.
Thank you so much. You put that just so lovely. Thank you so much for sharing our story as well. Now we have number two to the dynamic duo, another dynamic duo, which is Angel and Danny. Danny or Angel, can you share your story with us?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me share with you guys today. I'm Angel Speed, and I'm here today because I hope to expose the predatory practices that equity residential companies are doing to people across the country. These corporate landlords are the driving factor that is destroying the American dream for millions, yes, millions of citizens. Just last year, there were over 1 million evictions in the United States. Why didn't we just pay our rent? A lot of people will ask that. A lot of people will say, just pay your rent. Most of us did pay our rent. And that's the problem. That's the whole point. When we stand up for ourselves and demand what has been sold to us, we're treated like criminals. The legal system is set up to protect these major corporations like Equity Residential. Tell me, what does the single mother do that's barely getting by? Does she fight back? Does she risk losing the stability for her children? Or does she comply? That's what happens most of the time. People just comply. How many months should I continue to carry my handicapped wife up 3 flights of stairs because the corporate landlords won't fix the elevators? How many times do you go to the laundromat or eat out because you can't get a simple maintenance request in your kitchen? How long do you pay extra on your utility bills because your building has a leak? You walk by it, you see the water every day. How many months should you keep paying for an apartment that will not even provide you the lease for? That's my personal story. Because Equity Residential is still collecting government assistance from the last resident who lived there. There are just a few small examples that barely scratch the surface of the horrendous practices of companies like Equity Residential. Excuse me. We must unite. We must refuse to be bullied, bulldozed, and most importantly, blacklisted. Capitalism only works if we, the consumer, continue to consume. Join us, spread the message with your friends and family. The Debt Collective is here to fight, not just to cancel the debt that these corporations have already tacked onto us. We're fighting to stop companies like Equity Residential from doing it in the future to your daughters and grandchildren. Join our strike, use our landlord reporting and rent debt tool, and tell Equity Residential we've had enough. Thank you.
That was perfect, Angel. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I second that 3 and 4 times. Okay. Now, last but not least, we have an incredible member of our team who has just been endlessly supportive and wise because of her background. And I'm so, so, so happy to introduce our very own Pamela.
Hello, everyone. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank y'all for coming and joining in with us. I live on the East Coast. I moved to California sight unseen. I was recruited. I'm a realtor licensed in 3 states, and I lived in Northridge. So I believe the California dream, and I had no idea what type of landlord I was about to get involved with. As a tenant, and also as a real estate professional, I recognize that Equity Residential is a corrupt bully. They're violating the rights and putting people at risk every day. They're setting people up to never be able to own a home. They're setting people up, disproportionately Black people, to be unhoused for generations. They For me, my story briefly, I was flying back and forth to take care of my mother. I had no idea I was losing my mother. So this is it was a really tender moment in my life, and I was dealing with COVID. I hadn't worked because of pardon me, I was dealing with the COVID epidemic, and I was out of work for like 18 months. So I'm flying back and forth from the East Coast, from the West Coast to the East Coast to care for my mother. I get a notice on my door that's backdated, and they said they served me, which they did not. And I said, there's no possibility you served me because I've been on the East Coast. And so then I began to see some other things. They lied from me at the inception of the transaction. I moved sight unseen, and there was just a bunch of dishonesty. I lived with train noise every hour of the day up till 3 in the morning every day, and they lied and said I would never hear the train. So I noticed some of the things when I joined this team that they're doing to violate tenants' rights. They are definitely slumlords. They are deceitful. They have like a racketeering uh, thing that they do, where they have these fees that they make tenants pay, and then there's even tenant retribution. So there are a lot of real estate violations that uh, they practice on a regular basis. It bothers me as a realtor, as a professional, because we come to serve the public. So I'm here today, to put my hand to the plow, and I'm asking you to work with us to stop this machine from moving forward and taking advantage of the public. As I said, I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast alone. Equity residential leaves people saddled with debt and makes them unhousable. I need you to hear that. They will cause generational, this is a generational ripple when a person loses their home. Uh, some of the things that I learned from listening to different stories of the different tenants where people were living with mold and abuse and unfair practices, and they were living with these fees, which it was crazy. I'm like, how do they get away with this? So I'm here tonight, and I'm hoping that you will join with us. And please use the rent debt tool. It saved me. As I said, I was living on the West Coast alone. I found this group. I listened to them. I appreciate all of them. They're all special. They all have their special parts that they bring and their strengths. And I learned how they were targeting minority groups. I'm like, this can't go on. I'm here tonight. I'm pledging myself and my help to take this entity down for my grandchildren. I cannot allow this to happen. We have to push. We have to do this together. We need your help. So use the tool. I was going to show you a picture of my grandchildren so you can see why I'm so passionate, because I am a mama bear when it comes to my grandchildren. And I will not allow this to happen. I'm going to do everything I can. So use the tool. Thank y'all for coming. We appreciate you. You're not alone. Like I thought I was alone. I found this group. They helped me. They strengthened me. They helped me to be sane. At one point, I was laying on the floor crying because there was no one to help me, and I found them. I thank y'all for creating the tool. If you know anyone else that you should recommend or can recommend, we would appreciate it. So with that being said, thank you for listening to me. That's my story.
Thank you so much, Pamela. I'm going to come on the mic now. I have so much that I want to say about Pamela individually, but what I'm going to say is actually about the entire EQR9. Just, I want to see a lot. Everybody's sharing so much love, but let's see some love. Let's see some reactions in the chat. We just had a few of the EQR9 sharing with us tonight, their debt stories, why they've chosen to go on debt strike. And I just love you all so much. And Danny, we're all not alone in many ways, but you're probably not alone because I'm probably going to cry in the middle of what I'm going to say. So here it goes. So my name's Hannah. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm one of the co-founders of the Debt Collective, which means I have been around for a long time. And that's why they assigned me to tell this part of the story, which is debt strikes then and debt strikes now. So here's the story I want to tell you. Just the first click on that slide, please. In 2014, 11 years ago, we at the Debt Collective started organizing with student debtors from Corinthian Colleges Incorporated. Corinthian, at that time, was the largest for-profit college chain in the country. Why am I talking about student debt? Well, we're talking about debt strikes, but let me actually say something. For-profit colleges and corporate landlords have a lot in common. They run their businesses for investor profits, not for their students or for their tenants. And they're always trying to figure out how to squeeze more money out of people, not how to offer them a quality education or how to offer them stable housing, just how to squeeze more money for their investors. Okay, so these 15 students, former students, debtors, in 2014, they were already not paying their student debt. They couldn't. Their college had defrauded them. Their degrees, as they often said to us, weren't worth the paper they were printed on. They were underemployed. They were often unemployed. They could not afford their student debt payments. So rather than suffer the consequences of default alone, those 15 people who you are looking at right there, see, it makes me emotional already, went on strike. And it was the nation's first student debt strike. As you can say, they said to the Department of Education, to the loan services, to the Genesis Lending Company, to Corinthian and ECMC, we have one thing to say, next little click, we owe you nothing, right? That was their declaration of their nation's first student debt strike back in 2014. Also back in 2014, when we launched this strike, next little click, we also launched a legal tool alongside it. That legal tool back in the day was called defense to repayment. That's like a literally super old beginning of the internet screenshot. After we launched that legal tool, 82,000 student debtors from for-profit colleges used it in about a year. And it won that debtors union a seat at the bargaining table with their creditor actually pretty fast. Strikers went to Washington, D.C. for negotiated rulemakings. Sometimes we just went there to cause trouble. We organized together for years. The strike grew to thousands of people, not only from Corinthian, but from ITT Tech and Art Institute, other for-profit colleges. I want you to start imagining other corporate landlords, right? We held disruptive protests. Members argued with lawmakers in DC. Defense to repayment, that tool, gradually became the law of the land. 9 years after we started, we started in 2015, because in May 2022, 9 years of organizing, right? Let's talk about the effort that this requires. The strikers won. Thanks to all of that tireless organizing over 9 years, all $5.8 billion in student debt for 560,000 former students of Corinthian College was abolished. Okay, so what's the lesson? Why am I talking about debt strikes then to introduce and to give love to this debt strike now? Next slide. The lesson is when we talk about it, the debt collective all the time, but this is a classic organizing slide. Alone, our debts are a burden, but together they make us powerful. So now let's switch to EQR, right? Equity residential, and look at that diagram. When Equity Residential, the nation's 5th largest real estate investment trust, everybody calls it a landlord, it's actually like an investment trust, formally speaking. When they're after isolated tenants chasing after you for your rent or chasing after you for your debt, you're alone, you're disorganized. That big fish is going to eat you. All of us have been in that position, right? Of being eaten by big fish. But those little fish, that is all of us. When we swim in formation the other way, which is to say, when we organize, we are bigger. We are more powerful. So there will always be the courageous ones who will lead the fight. Next slide. These are the more specific organizing lessons now. There will always be the courageous ones who lead, right? The Corinthian 15 at the bottom of your screen, the EQR 9 at the top of your screen. Their courage will embolden others, and many more will join the strike. But here's the thing, not everyone will be able to strike. And for all of those other people, it helps to have that legal tool. So next click, please. We need to be able to assert our legal rights, not as individuals, but collectively, right? Organized in a union formation and at portfolio scale. Representative Tlaib said it earlier. They have like probably 250,000 tenants across the country, just EQR alone, right? That is the scale at which we need to start building power. We need to get there. We need to organize against profit-hungry real estate investment trusts who claim to provide housing, but in fact prioritize wealth building for themselves and their investors. So today, alongside the historic courage and announcement of the EQR 9, of their debt strike that will grow, right? We are also launching this legal tool. A huge shout out to Alex Ferrer. Alex, come off mute and say hi. I know you're going to kill me for doing this, but just say hi. Alex, please. Come. Where are you?
Hi, I'm here.
Yay! A huge shout out to Alex Ferrer, one of our researcher organizers, legal researchers, who is almost solely responsible for making this extraordinary tool alongside our amazing tech team. Thank you so much, right? So we have the Tenant Power Toolkit, Landlord Reporting and Rent Debt Tool. Several of the EQR 9 talked about this. We have learned from what they have experienced at the hands of EQR and also Essex and Equity Residential and Avalon Bay and Greystar, right? These practices are common across this kind of landlord. Who can use it? All current and former tenants of Equity Residential. Those are the folks we're looking for. Everybody, you can see a link to it there. There are many different ways to get there. All current and former tenants of Equity Residential, we want you to use it. Do you know current tenants? Do you know former tenants? Send them that link. But also, anyone with rent debt, no matter who your landlord was. Do you have rent debt? In other words, have you moved out or been evicted, but that landlord still claims you owe money? We want you to fill this out too, right? And finally, tenants of other landlords, but especially big corporate landlords, because this is after their predatory and illegal practices. If you want a written account of their abusive practices, fill this out because it will produce that for you. Okay, so to end my few minutes, right, I've tried to show you some of the similarities between debt strikes then and now, right? A courageous few who go on strike launched alongside a legal tool. I just want to make those similarities extra clear. So next slide, please. And the next click too, right? I just want to make the similarities between the EQR9 and the Corinthian 15 as clear as I can. First, in each of these cases, people have debts that they cannot pay, but they have been suffering alone, right? We heard that in the extraordinarily moving stories of the EQR9 folks who talked. Next. The target in both of these cases is corporate giants, right? Who are already facing regulatory scrutiny. In other words, people already knew that for-profit colleges were shady and predatory. I think most people know that giant corporate landlords are shady and predatory. And what that means is that as we do our political education, as we share our message, as the media talks about this, we think that we actually have a lot of the public on our side who know that housing should be something that makes family and community and not something that makes profits for folks who are already rich. Okay, next. Another similarity. These are crises that people know about, right? People now know about the student debt crisis. People are talking about the housing crisis everywhere. And there's so many folks on this call who have been doing long-term organizing against the housing crisis. This is us joining in. People know, and people want to be able to plug into something to build that power to change it. Not just to complain about it, not just to analyze it, but to change it. Also, the debts are unjust, right? The debts of those Corinthian students were unjust. And as you just heard in those extraordinarily moving stories, the debts of the EQR9 and beyond are unjust. They lost jobs, they lost income, they lost family members during the pandemic. Their landlords, in the meantime, raked in billions of dollars in profits and paid their CEO millions of dollars annually, right? The debts are unjust and morally should be canceled. And it's on us to build the power to make that happen. What else we got? Here's another really important commonality, and this is what the legal tools are for. There are legal arguments that we can make for debt cancellation and to hold these corporate landlords accountable if you are a current tenant as well. In other words, the law is on our side. And that's why we've made that online legal tool so that collectively we can assert those arguments. And finally, it's going to be a long fight, but we can win, right? I told you that one took us 9 years to win those $5.8 billion in debt abolition, right? So this is us announcing to all of you, we are starting and inviting all of you to jump in. Okay, so that's my 5 minutes. Maybe it was longer. I'm so sorry if it was. And now, so I mentioned during my 5 minutes that there are other folks on this call who are doing this extraordinary work to confront the housing crisis, and more importantly, to build collective tenant power. And it is my extraordinary pleasure, my privilege, to introduce some fellow travelers on the road to liberation, organizers from the Tenant Union Federation, rightly known by their acronym TUF, here to tell us about a just launched campaign in which tenants across the country have been coordinating, and they have organized 7 tenant unions across 5 states against the #1 landlord receiver of government subsidies in the country, Capital Realty Group. So Lakita Holliday, the vice president in one of those buildings, American Village in Louisville, Kentucky, is here to tell us more about this powerful fight. Please, let's give a shout out to all the folks at TUF and give a warm welcome to Lakita. Lakita, go ahead and come off mute, and we're so excited to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laquita Holliday. I am the vice president of the American Village Tenants Union. It's been amazing to hear from all of you today. I learned so much about how our organizing towards economic power is connected. Now, a brief about our national campaign. I was born and raised in Louisville. I have been a tenant in American Village for 13 years. During this time, I have seen how the owners of Property Capital Realty Group have not put in the resources to take care of our homes. Under Capital Realty Group, We've been forced to live in conditions no one should have to endure. Bed bugs in our couches and beds, cockroaches running across our walls, mice in our kitchens that we can't even eat in our homes. Some of us have mold and collapsing ceilings and floors. Some of us have leaking windows when it rains. Some of us have no air conditioner or heat in our units. There's no air conditioning in the hallways. The managers pick and choose who they respect and take care of and who they don't. This list goes on and on. Through our union organizing, I've learned exactly how owners of income-based properties work. Take our owners, Capital Realtors. Our landlords, Moshe Eichler and Sam Horowitz, live in New York. They own many properties across the United States. They buy all kinds of apartment buildings, but they especially like senior buildings. They borrow money from government banks and promise to fix up. Well, they don't see any of that money put back into our property. We just don't see it. Our landlords reported they made $650,000 last year. Let me repeat that, $650,000 in profit last year just off American Village. Now I have a question for the owners. How can you make $650,000 in profit while we're forced to live in these conditions? That ain't right. Over these last few months, tenants like me living in Capital Realty Group properties have been organizing. In early August, a senior building in Connecticut launched their union at supermajority. 2 weeks later, the Detroit Tenants Union launched a majority union in another senior building. The very next day, one of the owners, Moshe Eichler, showed up to the property. Those unions negotiated with him the next week. He made a lot of commitments, but then he got scared. The next day, we launched our union in Louisville, Kentucky. 2 weeks later, 3 unions launched in Kansas City and one in Billings, Montana. We know that Moshe is scared. He is starting to realize that we are building something he cannot control. Tenant power, union power. We are poor people. We are working people. We have worked all our lives. We are seniors and disabled. This means also we deserve to live good lives in our homes. Now we deserve to make so our grandkids don't have to fight this hard in the future for a decent livelihood. And that's what we're here fighting for. And we will fight until we win. Thank you.
Amazing. Laquita, thank you so much. So powerful. I just got a message from Kamar, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name. Might want to come on mic also from Tough and say a couple more words to close that out. Thank you so much, Laquita. We're so excited to work together on these campaigns. Go for it, Kamar.
Yes, yes.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Laquita. So my name is Kamar, and I'm the president of what is now the Kentucky Tenant Union. As of today, October 1st, the Louisville Tenant Union, we have shifted to become the Kentucky Tenant Union because we have been organizing statewide in another statewide campaign where we also got that landlord to come to the negotiation table. Just a little bit more off of what Laquita is talking about, y'all. All of us have been organizing our part of the TUF, the Tenant Union Federation, right? And that is a union for unions. And we are expanding. We have been working with Detroit, for example, who has not been part of TUF, but now they've, like through this process, have organized their union using the methodology that we use and have brought the building on board. And our goal is to keep doing this with other buildings and folks that want to organize across the country, because we know at the end of the day, it's going to take this unified power for us to actually like win what we want to win. And we're not letting up. We are escalating. This landlord is really scared. They sent in regional asset managers to talk with us to give us what we want now. They've been making a ton of repairs on the property, but they've also been retaliating a bunch, just like we all see when we try to build power. In some places they're being really nice, right? And then in other places, they're trying to do the divide and conquer where they're treating us really badly. And something I think that's really important to mention is just the difference between organizing in places like New York or Los Angeles and the North, right, versus organizing down here in the South. It's a very different world. Organizing in a place where we're already living in a world where more and more laws are disappearing, and we're getting to a place though too where in the South we've been in this position where there's no laws to protect tenants at all. And so it's been a fight, but we're building, and I'm excited to see what we're excited for you all to see what else we bring and how we can continue to grow in our organizing.
I think it might be my turn to introduce the next group, but thank you so much for showing us the power of the Tenant Union Federation. That was amazing. And we love to hear victory stories. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Way to go and awesome work. I want to introduce to you the iconic force of nature, one of my faves, Renee of the Debt Collective, who will share a little bit more about what he does and who they are.
Thank you so much, Tylea. And honestly, after having to follow up the entire presentation by Tough is going to be tough. I'm sorry for the pun. Hi, everyone. Renee Moya. I'm an organizer based in Los Angeles, although I'm currently in Ireland, which is why it's nighttime right now. I want to talk to you folks about an initiative that the Debt Collective has been working on now for a little over a year at this point, although we've had conversations for much longer. This initiative is something that we have been calling the Equity Residential Debtors and Tenants United. It is in a burgeoning attempt to go after one of the largest landlords in the country, the one that we've already been talking about, right? We have heard from the EQR9, we have heard from debtors like Pamela and Tylea and others like Paige, other folks who used to live in equity residential building and who have ended up basically being pushed out of their homes and into massive amounts of debt. But we have also, as the Debt Collective, been organizing current tenants who are living in these buildings. At the moment, we have two different buildings in Los Angeles, one in Koreatown, another one in downtown Los Angeles that we have been organizing around, and we'll hear a little bit more about that in a second. We also have been in conversation, though, we're talking to tenants in multiple other buildings across Los Angeles, across California, and in fact, again, we have been beginning up the first or opening stages of organizing tenants in equity residential buildings outside of Los Angeles itself. We are really excited about this. But one of the things that we are most excited about is the fact that this campaign that started just a few months ago has really taken off. It was a campaign to go after the unfair charges that landlords like Equity Residential levy on tenants, specifically around utilities. They have been using, like many corporate landlords, a system called the Ratio Utility Billing System, or RUBS, which is increasingly being used by landlords across the country. And after organizing for months, tenants at the Virgil Square Tenants Association in Koreatown were able to score an important victory. And if you guys could play the video on the screen, that would be great.
Hello, my name is Matt, and I'm one of the many residents here at Virgil Square Apartments who went on RUB strike and was credited $700 after going on RUB strike. RUB strike is essentially saying that we paid only our base rent and we did not pay any of our utilities. A lot of us were scared at first, a lot of us were nervous, including myself. But after going on RUB strike for just a few months, I was credited $700 to my account. It was a big win for all of us. It was a big win for our Tenants Association. And we are still fighting a good fight here at Virgil Square in Los Angeles. Please support us.
And I see that Ryan said he couldn't hear the conversation there, but what that was a tenant at Virgil Square, Mac talking about the fact that the tenants in that building, as well as tenants in the Mosaic building that Paige used to live in downtown Los Angeles, went on strike holding back their RUBS utilities charges, basically saying to the landlord, you should not be using this unjust and very opaque system of collecting or calculating one's utilities. But, as much as it was great to be able to hear Max say that, I would like us to go on to the next slide so that we can actually introduce another tenant who lives in the same building, Joe, who's going to talk to us a little bit about his experience organizing as a tenant during this strike. So Joe, if you want to take it away, and maybe we can take off the slideshow for this.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So my name's Joe. I live at Virgil Square Apartments, which is an apartment complex owned by Equity Residential. We all know who they are now. I'm a member of the Virgil Square Tenants Association, which is a wonderful organization that we, the tenants, built with support from the Debt Collective and the LA Tenants Union. And this organizing that we've done has enriched all of our lives in so many ways. The power of organizing is very real and rewarding in ways that I never really imagined. When you first move into a building like this, things sort of feel off. Everything's like cold and you don't feel like they're treated like a human. Personally, I can say that I was lied to, manipulated, and gaslit by the 5th largest corporate landlord in the country, Equity Residential. It can feel extremely isolating living under a landlord like this. They just don't care about you. Everything's so profit oriented. That's all they see. They don't see you as a person. You're just sort of like a number. And that becomes really apparent really fast. But at first I was like, okay, maybe that's just me. This is my first apartment. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe it's just how it is. But once we, the neighbors, started talking to each other, we realized we sort of all feel the same way. And there's it's not just like one group of people. Like there's so many different people in this building with, just different backgrounds. But we all feel this. We all feel this exact same way. And through the organizing that we've done, we've been able to support and validate each other and achieve some very big, real, tangible wins with management. Many of us, as you heard, have been concerned about the high utility costs, which are done through this system that's, full of dishonesty and questionable tactics. But of course, individually, management ignores us. Some of us would reach out and be like, hey, what's going on? And they either don't even respond or they kind of blow your concern under the rug. But once we started organizing together, we were able to get management's attention. We all signed a petition that we delivered to management. We put up protest signs on our doors, and eventually we went on utility strike, refusing to pay the utility bills. And after 45 apartments went on utility strike together, only then did management reduce our bills by around 30% and later refunded us collectively a total of over $25,000 for higher than expected utility bills over the last several years. And that $25,000 figure is only coming from members of the Tenants Association when all residents were given this refund. So the real total might be even higher. But it was only after we organized that they listened to us. They would have never given anyone anything if we hadn't pressured them collectively. And we know because we tried. I tried for about a year on my own and got nowhere. But once we worked together, once we all made noise about this, management took action within a few months. 4 months into our RUB strike, and maybe even less than 4 months, we got the initial lowering, and then 4 months in, that we got that refund. So that was a big deal to us, and they really, I think now that we're organized, they don't really know how to handle us because they're not used to it. They don't know how to go about a group of people confronting them. And even beyond the landlord, we've created this amazing sense of community that we never had before. I lived here for 3 years before we started organizing, and I didn't know the names or even the faces of anyone in the building. But now we have a building-wide group chat where we're in constant communication with each other, helping each other, organizing social events, and a ton more. It's given life to the building in a way that I never imagined. There's just so much life. You walk out of the hall and people say hi to you and smile and wave, and we're talking to each other. And in a way, it's given us this real sense of ownership over our homes and our community. I think Danny and some people in the EQR9 earlier said home is community, and that I've really awoken to that through this, and I feel this like really deep ownership of my home and my community, and I think we all do, that we never had before. I mean, the power of organizing is real. It's doable. Its victories are very, very attainable. We've only been organizing for a year, and we've already got their attention, and they're already kind of nervous about us. I mean, I can say with the utmost sincerity that organizing with the Virgil Square Tenants Association and the Debt Collective and the LA Tenants Union and all these wonderful people has changed my life in just this really amazing way. And yeah, you can do it too. Anyone can do it. It's so doable, and I think that's the most amazing thing, is just how attainable it is. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I wanted to be able to just tie some, kind of themes that we've been hearing throughout the presentation, but also specifically what Joe and others have said. I think earlier we heard from our tough comrades, right, that tenants in the South, for example, who come to the table with very few legal, if any, legal rights, organizing is the only way that we are able to achieve victories, to be able to extract concessions from landlords, especially at the scale of, for example, Capital Realty Group, or in the case of Joe and others, Equity Residential, who is the 5th largest landlord in the entire country. However, even in places where we do have nominally more tenant protections, like Los Angeles or in California, more broadly speaking, what we see is that tenants always ultimately end up being the only real enforcers of existing law. In other words, tenants might have paper protections. They might have supposedly the law on their side. And even then, it takes an enormous amount of effort from tenants individually to be able to get their rights. This is where organizing steps in. And so I think it's important to emphasize at the moment, especially when we're talking about corporate landlords of the size of Equity Residential, the need to be able to organize at scale, given the fact that landlords like Equity, which have 80,000 units across the country, 80,000 units, right? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who live in these buildings. We need to be able to organize at that scale. And we need to do it, by the way, not just for the tenants living in these buildings. We also have to do it for the tenants who live in other buildings where other landlords are paying attention to the kind of stuff that Equity Residential does. And also because Equity Residential happens to be, like a lot of these corporate landlords, they happen to be at the head of the real estate industry, the lobby that prevents us from winning tenant protections at the local level, at the state level, and certainly at the federal level. Here in California, Equity Residential alone has spent about $20 million trying to stop rent control initiatives in California, and they've succeeded every time because of the amount of money that they have, using money from people like Joe and Pamela and Tylea. And so again, it's important for us to be able to organize at scale. And so for those of you who are organizers on this call, who do have a desire to kind of plug in and to figure out how we can actually tackle these landlords, I want to encourage you, number one, to go to the website that we've created. It's kind of a little bit of a landing page, EQRDTU, where you can learn more about this kind of burgeoning campaign that we have against Equity Residential, both on the tenant side and the debtor side, but also to contact us if you believe that you might have Equity Residential buildings in your city, in your state, and you want to be able to help us do this. Again, we're not going to be able to organize as the Debt Collective 80,000 tenants on our own, 80,000 units on our own. We're really talking about 200,000 plus people. That's going to require a huge effort from a lot of different organizations across the country. We are encouraging others to join us in that fight. With that, I'm going to pass it on over, I believe, back to Tylea or to Rochelle. Thank you so much for listening in to me today, folks. And thank you so much for listening to Joe. Thank you so much, Joe, for all the work that you and the other tenants at Virgil Square have been doing.
Thank you so much, Renee and Joe. Y'all have such a way with pulling us in and wrapping it up in such an amazing way. We're so grateful for the energy and the momentum that we're building over time. I'm really appreciative of just being in this group, being able to feel the energy and apply that to the work that we're doing. And just congratulations, everybody, because we did that. We did that and then some. Okay, so I'm sure if you haven't known who this is before just the other day, you probably know her now, Asada Shakur. Though her actions and controversial legacy created some controversy within our government, a lot of people saw her for who she really is, a freedom fighter. And the government framed her as a terrorist because of her actions. And it's honestly beautiful to see, because we're going to see how we might be framed in a certain way because we're standing up for our rights. And yeah, we're such bad people for fighting for our rights, right? In the same way as Asada felt all of those repercussions from people projecting their insecurities onto her. Her influence is particularly evident as she was a powerful symbol of resistance and resilience in the Black liberation movement, inspiring many with her activism and autobiography and influencing cultural figures and activists. We will affirm ourselves using this famous quote of Asada's, saying it 3 times. The first, the lowest we can possibly say it. The second, a medium way that we can say it. And then the third time, the highest that we can say it. So I'm going to read the quote and then we'll say it together 3 times. The quote is, "It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." I want everybody to come off mute if you feel comfortable to say this with us 3 times so that the collective energy can build, okay? Everybody ready?
Yes, we got you.
Yes, let's do it. Okay, so ready? 1, 2, 3. It is our duty
and fight for our freedom.
It is
Yeah.
our
It is our duty to
win.
win.
We must
We
must
love
Love each other and support
support
each other.
each other.
We have
We
We
have
have
nothing
nothing
to
to
lose but our
lose
chains.
but our chains.
I love that. I felt that energy already.
I say.
One more time. Let's try it one more time in a medium voice, and then the last time in the highest voice we can. Okay, let's try it one more time. Ready?
Do you want to do a call and response? Because if you do a call and response, then you say it and then we repeat it. Would that be better?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, ready? It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love each other and support each other.
We must love each other and support each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing
to lose but our
chains.
Amen. Okay. All right. One more time. I'll call and repeat. One more time, a lot louder. Like, say it with emphasis.
With your chest.
Okay.
Okay, we got you.
Yeah, say it with your chest. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It
is our duty to
win.
We must love each other and support each other.
We must love each other and support each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose
but our
chains.
Doggone chains.
That's right.
That's it.
Yes, thank you for saying it physically, spiritually. And thank you so much, everybody, again, for your time and your patience, staying through this whole meeting and hearing us all out. I'm so appreciative of you guys. And I'm looking forward to us acting and organizing again in the future. I know you guys didn't miss the part about our landlord reporting debt tool. Please use the tool, and we will be following up with everybody on this video that will be recorded. And make sure you check out the links that are in the chat. Thank you so much for the love, everybody. And again, thanks for the EQR9 for being here. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Maddie. I received so much wisdom from Maddie. And thank you, Hannah and Agatha. I appreciate all y'all. And thank you, Alex, the GOAT. Thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate you. And Dr. B.
Thank you, everyone. Y'all are amazing. I don't want to leave.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for jumping on today.
We will see you soon. Please share our landlord reporting tool with everyone you know who is dealing with a shady landlord, okay? Make sure you spread it far and wide. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next time.